For this presentation, curator, art historian, and writer Chus Martínez gives a short introduction to contextualize a recent publication that she wrote over the course of spring 2020 under the title Corona Tales. Chus Martínez is currently director of the Art Institute at the Academy of Art and Design in Basel, where she also curates the exhibition space of the Institut Der Tank. Her latest book, Corona Tales, was written and published online, followed by a print edition, and offered the chance for gathering, if just virtually, demanding to identify vulnerabilities and how the COVID-19 crisis was being generalized and how to research ways of doing. So we'll be hearing from Chus, who's pre-recorded her presentation, and then I'll be reading one of her Corona Tales just following the video.
Hello, good night or good morning, depending on the latitude. My name is Chus Martínez, and this is a pre-recorded video because I just managed to go back to the epicenter of the place that is actually the origin of my Corona Tales, where I've born, and in Spain, north coast of Spain. And yeah, I really wanted to introduce the tales, which is a difficult matter for me, but also a simple one. During the first lockdown, I've been asking myself actually what could be done in order to use all the channels that we have to connect, because we couldn't meet, and it was very dramatic. And all of a sudden I not only was disconnected from family and friends, but also disconnected from all my staff, from the students, from everyone that I was like you, having contact with. And I really wanted to kind of create a bridge somehow. And I actually thought that a possible bridge, culturally easy for me, it's humor, or to start explaining something about oneself that the others kind of know but don't know, and they actually know a little bit, but they are also a little bit ashamed because of the matter, because you are talking perhaps about your family and questions that they are very familiar to my friends, but actually they don't know it in detail. And then I thought it would be really nice if at the end of every day we kind of reconnect with a glass of wine, and they are reading that, and then they can, you know, make fun of me somehow for being super personal in the social media, which has been always a question, like, what are you going to post in the social media? And I thought that it could be a platform of production. And the first production that I wanted to do was actually storytelling. For many years, those that know me, I've been complaining that I've never been able to write a book from the beginning to the end, because it's very difficult, because my thinking is in fragments. And actually, I never trust myself to do a fragmentarian book on thinking about the art world and so on and so forth. I just produce it through the different texts that sometimes people commission for catalogs and different pieces of writing. So somehow the Corona Tales have been my first book. And I started super motivated by just this bridging and connecting with my friends. And every night I would just start by a memory that that I have from my grandparents, particularly my grandfather, that lost his own parents in the Spanish flu. I knew all these stories, and these stories are intermingled with, you know, the stories of all the village, which is a very small village of no more than, let's say, 100 families in the northwestern coast of Spain. And then also with the fact that my parents needed to migrate to Barcelona when I was small. And then it was a back and forth in my childhood in between the big city and a family that was speaking Gallego, which is like Portuguese, at home, in a Catalan context, in a Spanish-speaking planet, so to say. So I just thought that it would be a good thing to start one day by explaining the story of my grandparents, and the next day explaining the story of my parents in Barcelona. And somehow I never took notes or anything. It all came down at the end of every day when I was really, really tired and exhausted after many Zoom meetings. And I thought about actually the reaction of those that would know me and would know those that I am talking about, as a way of just having some sort of a communal space together. But I was very surprised by the reaction and the fact that many people could connect to those stories. And all of a sudden, I started receiving really an incredible amount of messages, but also encouragement. So people, sometimes I was so late because I was trying not to hit the bottle of wine before I wrote the tales. But I was kind of late. Instead of at 7 o'clock, I would post in at 8 or at 9 or at 10, sometimes even midnight. And then you have this private messaging system of Instagram of people asking about, where's the tale? And then I thought, okay, at least they are motivated by that, and it produced a sense of togetherness. The image have been produced by Ana Dominguez. She has been creating the visual philosophy of the Institut Kunst in Basel for the last 6 years, and is a person that I always work with, young woman from Barcelona, also in lockdown, and then also making fun of the fact that I was repeating Corona every day, Corona tales. But it was this idea that, okay, let's not skip it or avoid it, but go completely into the substance of it. And then I rediscover through the writing many aspects of my own identity that are funny and interesting and actually are not really shaping my everyday, but at that particular moment it gave an interesting context to my being in Switzerland. So my father and my mother migrated to Barcelona. In Spain, we still call migrants those that move in between regions, which is interesting political detail. And then my grandparents, actually my grandfather, migrated to Montreux, to the French-speaking part of Switzerland at the beginning of the 70s. So, and he was immensely happy in Switzerland. So he couldn't write. And then he was sending letters to my grandmother by dictating or explaining them to other migrants that could write a little bit. And then the letters were collected and sent to the village, and they were arrived, at least once a month. And then you would have like reports for every week. And then he was so happy. All these letters were just collecting happy moments of being in a culture he had no idea, in absolutely amazement of this new world. And I thought, wow, it's really interesting because I'm also happy in Switzerland. And this kind of happiness and possibility of connecting with a context that actually has very little to do with yourself in many ways because you did not grow up there, and so on and so forth. It was also a space of possibility and hope to connect, and I could actually make a moment of symmetry in between the space of the social media as a positive space and any other space in life that you want to transfer into a positive space. And yeah, that's kind of the story of it. As you know, Instagram only allow for 320 words, so that was the limit of the day. I did not have any strategy or anything. I just kind of interiorized the format, and it came natural to me. And I was very surprised when later on Lens, the publishing house in Milan, by Eduardo Bonapesti, actually asked me to publish those tales. So I've been honored that they could be collected and then they could constitute my first book. So at least it's, one trauma is out, and now I have a book. And I must say, I'm starting again thinking about the new row of tales. So thank you.
I will now read one of the Corona tales that Chus Martínez just told us about. And together we chose tale number 16, titled The Swiss. The, the experience of working in Switzerland transformed my grandfather's worldview. He often said that it made him realize that we originated in a too poor corner of the planet, and it was very difficult for us to realize the true beauty and intelligence of life in other parts. He was fascinated by small details. For example, the Swiss had a machine in the size and form of an egg, and in one go, You could perfectly slice a hard-boiled one. He cried with laughter, describing these things to my grandmother in the kitchen. They had also a cup where a soft-boiled egg could be placed with a small round metal guillotine to cut the top off, and it could then be eaten with a mini spoon. What is a mini spoon? She could not even produce a mental image of a spoon smaller than a teaspoon. A spoon the size of the hand of one of the mice that live in our barns. Just imagine a mouse eating an egg. More laughs. Every second Sunday, the foreman in Montreux, who liked him a lot and was the same age as him, invited him for breakfast. To slice the bread perfectly, every piece becomes a plate. In a village, they baked bread so that you could break it with your hands and soak it in hot milk in the morning. Bread was never meant for much else, since potatoes took over after breakfast. And they put butter on the bread, and they do not keep the butter in its packages like us, but they put it in a special case. Damn it, it is so good, laughs. But being a fine carpenter, the object that took his breath away was the honey dipper. You cannot imagine, he said to my astonished grandmother. They invented a wooden thingy with equally spaced grooves, giving the illusion of a honeycomb to pour honey onto the bread. Damn it! The vision of this world, he saw, made him laugh as if it were the best comedy ever. A laughter full of respect, possessed by the amusement of a world so different from his, and the joy of having seen an army of objects performing like ballet dancers, a monumental synchronized dance company of cucumber slices and egg prickers.